Welcome to Druid Talks. Wayne Butterfield is a pioneer in the intelligent automation industry. His work has been the subject of research and books. Wayne himself is a prominent speaker and publisher of intelligent automation and AI content, and is currently the head of AI and automation at ISG. Wayne, welcome to Druid Talks.
Well, thank you, Kieran. A very familiar face yourself as well, and thank you. You're almost making me blush there.
Well, if I could make you blush, that will make my day. After that, I'll worry about the questions. Well, here, jump in. For those who don't know you, I'll be very surprised. I think most people will know you in the industry, but I don't think at times when they realize that way back in the day, you were at the very sharp end of what we now call conversational AI and chatbots, but they weren't called that back then. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your experience with conversational AI, text, and everything else with our good audience today?
Yeah. So it does feel, it probably is almost a decade ago now, and you're right. We live actually in an industry that reinvents similar terms, I would say. So conversational AI probably wasn't what it was called then, but we did have virtual assistants, and actually even before that, if I think about where we started. So back in 2002. Just not long after RPA, actually. So that was in 2010, and probably in about 2012. We had one of the largest online chat operations in the world at that point. A great team there really pioneered this new digital channel much earlier than anybody else had done. And what that meant is that we had about 600, 700,000 online digital conversations, which again, back then, that's a month. So huge volumes of these online digital conversations. And that for me was the precursor to conversational AI as we know it today. Very difficult to convert somebody from the phone, speaking to a human, to interacting with a digital avatar. So that stepping stone of online chat really took people from the phone to texting people online, to then being able to then maneuver those conversations from a person to a bot. And we had Lucy, which was our AI avatar at the time. Actually, you could tell that we really were early on in the adoption there, because the number one question asked of Lucy, which again was a AI avatar, was, "Are you married or do you have a boyfriend?" So, 2012, 2013 was when I first got my hands dirty with conversational AI, or we used to call it NLP back, but like pure NLP back then. And that really opened me up to looking into what are customers asking, what are the responses that we're able to give, and from there is kind of where my love of digitizing and automating customer service grew.
It's interesting that, because everybody just assumes these technologies have appeared today, but the actual foundation and the life cycle of them has continued over the last 15 and 20 years. And that's why your experience is so fascinating, to understand what worked and what didn't work. And it's funny hearing the question, "Are you married?" But you can't imagine anybody asking that this day, or at least I hope not. I hope we've moved on.
Well.
What about conversational AI then in its current guise? Do you feel it empowers existing technologies and empowers existing companies to be more digital and allow them to do that faster? Or what do you think its role is these days?
I think it's a necessity for a lot of reasons, mainly because we have evolved as humans, really. This is literally connected to my hand now. We're always on as people, and I think because we're always on, we always need to be served, and that is incredibly expensive for brands to do if their only workforce is human, right? You need to have your silicon workforce, and whether it's robotic process automation or conversational AI, these are silicon workers. And so I think any brand that isn't always on is at risk of losing opportunity, of even unknowingly having their consumers annoyed that they've gone to their website, their hours of operations are not aligning to when I have time, and therefore I am annoyed without ever telling you, or maybe I've lost a sale. And so I think it's a necessity now, and it doesn't necessarily mean that every conversational AI conversation and every deployment across the world is and has been a good one, but the capability, the foundation that this type of interaction provides you is a must as we think about the future. And technology continues and will always evolve. And so whether or not you agree that the current deployments of most conversational AI technologies are transformational, what we've seen with current improvements in how this type of technology can converse just tell me that it's almost going to be impossible for most conversations in the near and medium future to be still completed by people. It's just not going to happen. And so, for me, really, this is again a foundational technology. It's a foundational capability. And having that capability or not having that capability, I think, is going to be to the detriment of any organization, big or small, in the future.
That's quite a massive statement. And again, I'm referring to moving back in the day to now, whereas at the very beginning, people objected to technology and then wanted a person. And we've almost gone 360 degrees from what you're describing. But for that to happen, there has to be benefits for the organization and for the customer. So what are those benefits, Wayne, that you're seeing that is compelling businesses and compelling people to want the silicon, not the physical person, or maybe not exclusively the physical person?
Yeah. And I'm a big believer in contact strategy and context and these other capabilities and things you need to think about with any deployment of conversational AI. I don't think you can only have a conversational AI strategy, and I don't think it can ever be standalone. I think we really need to be mindful that right time, right query, right channel in the right context is and you need to think about it in those kind of areas in order to make this a true success and not lead to people having frustrations. So you have to think about this as almost like a new starter, in my view. You've always got room, and always, even in the future, you're going to have agents and human agents who are always, at least for the next 5, 10, 15 years, I would guess, you want to have dealing with certain queries. But you only want them to be dealing with those type of queries, and anything that is simpler in nature, that is transactional, that needs more of an immediate response, and I guess lastly, those that the customer is comfortable in dealing with a silicon worker. You're just going to have that kind of in place. I don't think the right thing to ever do is force a silicon worker on a customer. I think you do really need to be mindful that certain customers in certain demographics at certain times in certain scenarios are just not going to be relevant for conversational AI to take the place of people. But there's going to be a whole new piece of, I guess, work for enterprises in the future to really drill down into the guts of their organization to understand which queries, with which context should be with people, and those that should be with silicon workers, with conversational AI. And it's an interesting one that I think we're going to see over the next decade, now that we've started to get some of these technical capabilities in place. And there are going to be winners and losers, I would suggest, in the deployment of all of this technology, as we've seen to date as well. But I think, yeah, it's without doubt, this is over the next 10 years, I think is going to be significantly more exciting and better than what we'd seen over the previous decade in this kind of area as we awaken to some of those benefits. And those benefits for me, if I think about it from a consumer perspective, the always on, that for me, as somebody who is pretty much always on and always connected, I find it incredibly frustrating to go to a website, into an app, and have sorry, we'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Well, I'm sorry, I'm working at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, but I am available at 11:15 tonight before I go to bed. And it's, in my view, it's a reasonably transactional type query that I may have. I just haven't been able to do it on your app, or your website's not particularly clear. And yet, you are now forcing me to have to wait and speak to a person, because clearly you haven't got silicon workers available in those the kind of the later hours, which is annoying me, because I don't think I need to even speak to a person in order to get this query resolved, but I need more help than what you've given me so far. And from a business perspective, of course, there is always an opportunity for cost savings. But there is also that opportunity for increasing revenue. I mean, if mine was a sales query that I had, I may now be frustrated because I haven't been able to get that query resolved, and I may have gone to your competition. So, revenue is probably one we don't speak about enough with conversational AI. Of course, we always think about cost saving because we are deflecting contacts away from people into this more digital, automated channel. But that kind of always on, that connectivity that you can have with your clients, especially some of the younger generations, for me, I think as we start to think about the future and think about the longer term, the next 5 to 10 years, the always on, the new generations who have got spending power, they're going to expect it. And for those that don't have it, there's going to be problems.
Almost like an arms race to some degree. And I love what you're saying there, by the way, Wayne, looking at 5 years plus, because I worry sometimes that companies look at the next 12 months or their next short-term period and don't think a little bit more strategically. And like yourself, I now expect and demand service when I want it, because I know the technology's there. And if it's not there, it's so simple to move to someone's partner. It's phenomenal. It is phenomenally easy.
Yes.
Just shifting gear a little bit, in your recent article, Top 5 Intelligent Automation Predictions for 2023, you said a major RPA player will buy a conversational AI platform. Why do you think that? What's the business need, or what was the reasoning behind your proclamation?
So you think about, and we both have slightly different takes on this. Thinkity think, clickety click, right? Handwork, headwork. An RPA player is no longer purely an RPA player. We've seen this over the last 2-3 years, various different acquisitions, strategic partnerships. And so even the RPA players now are more than just the clickety click or the handwork players of the market, right? They have started to realize that they need to create an automation platform, because automation of work is far more complex than typing, clicking, moving a mouse, copying and pasting, right? We get that. And if you think about where the market is going and what clients are demanding, it's automation. It's AI and automation. It's everywhere. You can't get away from it. And so when I think about the digital worker, and I often think about it across 3 or 4, maybe five key areas, the replication of the eyes, the ability to speak, understand, interpret, etc. Converse is a key component of most work, whether you're conversing with a colleague, conversing with a customer. So without a conversational AI player, you basically have a digital worker who is unable to communicate verbally. And so you're missing this kind of key capability from your platform. And that for me is kind of why I'm thinking a conversational AI player will be acquired. Now, UiPath did go some route with the purchase of Reinfer a couple of years, maybe it was about 18 months ago now. But that is generally retrospective and more conversational intelligence versus, I would say, conversational AI, chatbot type technology. So I still think there's a gap there. I'd be really surprised if it doesn't get filled. I mean, I can't see how you can be an automation platform and not have that ability to converse and maybe give your bots a voice, give your PDF, via IDP a voice and ability to communicate. I think there's something in that feels like it's still very much missing from every RPA player. Maybe apart from Microsoft, who would say that their Power Platform already has that capability.
I wouldn't argue against Microsoft. They say a lot. But no, it's so true. I think the most natural thing that we as humans do, it's not typing or clicking. It is that conversational piece. And therefore, if we're trying to replicate a digital worker to be somewhat supportive or equivalent to a human worker, then the conversation piece is missing. Now, you mentioned a quote, clickety click, and I can't help but play back yours, which is, if you can think it and you can say it, then ChatGPT can create it. Where do you think ChatGPT fits, or generative AI fits, in the context of conversational AI for businesses? What should companies do with it?
So, do you know what? I just had it's funny because I had my response, not my response. I had my bill this morning for my OpenAI monthly subscription, and I was thinking I didn't use it in the last few weeks at least. So I think generative AI as a complete segment is incredibly interesting. I have spent, thanks to another great thought leader, Danilo Magari, I've spent the last couple of weeks deep diving into avatars, deepfakes, voice synthesizing, and speaking with companies in that space, building my own capabilities, and so generative AI, I think, we have a lot of hype, riding a wave. The business value, I still think we need to really get under. I still see that with ChatGPT, that there's a cool technology. In fact, one of the other quotes that I use, it's cool but not corporate. And what I mean by that is, it is a technology, and I think always has been, that you can talk to your mates about, but when it makes it into the enterprise, it's probably it's more of a worry than something that you're getting value out of right now. There's more, I guess, scaremongering in the enterprise than there is really understanding the value, the way it can change work. Because a lot of the examples that you see everywhere, again, are cool, but is it going to transform the way that I work? Is it going to save me time on a regular occurrence? And when I mean regular, I mean, is it going to save me 5 minutes every hour? Not, is it going to save me 5 minutes every day? Because I can save 5 minutes every day by doing something completely different that's going to be a lot more secure, a lot easier to implement than something like ChatGPT in the enterprise. But how I think about all of these technologies, and this is how we all have to think about them. Up until November, so less than a year ago, most people were not thinking that they would have this big a jump in technical capability in the language space and others. Just think about where we're going to get to now. There's all of this focus on it in the next 12, 24, and 36 months. These technologies are as bad as they're ever going to be. They're only really going to get better. Now, we may find that transformers can only get us to a certain point, and everyone now is appearing to nitpick at some of these capabilities. I just think we need to be really mindful. GPT, OpenAI, many other organizations are all working on fixing some of these problems. things like copilots and other capabilities that are going to be generated on the back of these capabilities are where business value is going to come from. So, what do I think about ChatGPT right now? I think it's cool. I use it when I think it's appropriate. I think some great user cases for it. You could take this transcript from this conversation and say, I need you to write me the social media brief for talking about this. Great. Do you know what? It saved me 10, 15 minutes. And that could transform my day if I did this every hour, every week. Brilliant. I've just saved myself half a day. But I don't. So I think we're still in the early days of getting true regular value from these capabilities. But once we crack that nut, and believe me, it's what I spend a lot of my time thinking about right now. Once we crack the nut, then I don't want to say it's going to be transformational, because I feel like every technology could be transformational. But I feel like there is a step forward in changing the way that we work. Whether or not that delivers a significant amount of time saving, I think, is still to be known. But things like composing, summarizing, I think we're going to use technology very quickly to be able to do all of those things. Just like going back to conversational AI, we will use conversational AI to do very simple transactional activities. The crossroads between a enterprise using ChatGPT and in their current conversational deployment, again, cool, not corporate. My big worry is about an enterprise like certainty. The entire premise of a large language model is going to give you something based on prediction. It's therefore not necessarily going to be exactly as you want. Some people would call that hallucinations. Therefore, I think we just need to work a little bit more on things like guardrails to make sure that what we say, what we respond, or what they respond is going to be still classed as corporate. But I think this entire space is so exciting, and I think we have years of new stuff coming out that is just really going to be interesting to be a part of, and really interesting to see how the enterprise changes the way that it utilizes this type of technology moving forward.
Interesting. I love your perspective on that. I seen a stat the other day. I was listening to HBR webcast, and they said last year in, I think, Silicon Valley, there was 80 generative AI startups. Now there's 8,000, which shows you hype or interest, or all of a sudden. And I'm very vocal about supporting ChatGPT or the derivatives, whilst putting guardrails around it. And where I used to have Google open every day, and now I've got Grammarly, ChatGPT, Bing, Bard, MetaGPT, and I run through each of them to do a lot of different things: active to passive sentences, ideas for posts, summarizing text, you name it, doing some data analysis and whatever else. But I get what you're saying, and you see this on the hype curve as well, and the development. Get the technology out, fix some of the things, move it forward, and round you go in an iterative phase. A lot of parallels, as you and I will have recognized, with RPA back in the day. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops and grows. If you were to characterize conversational AI in one sentence, Wayne, how would you characterize it?
That's putting me on the spot. If I was to characterize conversational AI in one sentence, what would that be? Oh, that's the most difficult question you've asked me today, mate.
Refer to ChatGPT.
Mate, that's exactly what I was just going to say. I've just copied this down. Give me 10 responses to this question. Now, this would be my use of ChatGPT today. Wayne GPT, as I'm speaking to you, would be this is hard. The automation of human conversations with brands. Is that what I say? No, that's a really poor one.
I'm glad I've got you stumped here, because I know you could answer 99.999% of anything to do with intelligent automation. Oh, it's made my
because it's
day.
just a sentence, and I have too many. It's such a wide a wide scope here. But the conversational AI to me is the automation of human conversation. Right, that's what it is to me. It's the automation of human conversation in a nutshell. But that's almost too simplistic, and it's so much, or can be so much more than that. Because when I actually think about conversational AI, I actually think about it as three things. I think about it as chatbots and voice bots and automating human conversation. I think about it in the sense of understanding conversation in things like agent assistance technologies in the IVR. And then I also think about it as being able to interpret conversations for use in analytics using conversational intelligence. So when I think of conversational AI, I think about it in those three lenses. We've spoken about chatbots and voice bots in the main today. And that's what got me stumped, because to me, conversational AI is those three things. And that's a really long sentence, which is much longer than just one sentence. So that's why I had me stumped. But I went simple: automation of human conversation.
I love it. I love it. I love it. We'll run it through ChatGPT, because it's interesting. I do wonder and worry, do people think of conversational AI as chatbot, which to me was simple question and answer a long time ago, really truly back in the day. And now you see, chatbots plus AI to get toward conversational AI, AI plus NLP plus a whole host more to get to conversational AI, and then using and integrating conversational AI with conversational business applications and ChatGPT or other variants to suddenly move the conversation on dramatically. It's an interesting space. It really, really is. Wayne, thank you so much for today. We should next time have ChatGPT in the background and then ask it, how did we do? And then could you score us and give us 10 other questions that we could have asked or answered, but unfortunately we don't have that amount of time. Look, it is an interesting space. I'm glad you brought us through the history of everything that is there. And that's the exciting bit, probably why you or I are in this industry more than anything, is brilliant tech keeps happening and happening and happening. Although I do see the cycle shortening and shortening and shortening. And I kind of wonder whether that scares the life out of me now, or it excites me. I think there is a lot of hype around conversational chat GPT, but I think there's a lot of promise and a lot of value. And I see stuff like, Microsoft OpenAI, when that's integrated in a really secure fashion and companies implement that in the correct way, it's really, really good. Whilst, as you mentioned earlier on, been very conscious around the governance and the risk and the bias and everything else, and that we cannot move away from. But that is what makes, as you mentioned earlier on, something that augments, something that saves you money. And again, I love that you said it as well, something that now drives incomes as well. So it's not one thing, as you mentioned, it's not one sentence as we closed, it's many, many things. And I appreciate you calling those all out for the audience today. Thank you so much indeed.
No, thank you for having me, Kieran. As always, an absolute pleasure speaking with you and having our minds meet as we discuss, this and another topic. So superb. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.